running this masterclass every month. We started it in May, so it's only a few months ago that we started, and the first month's theme was about mindfulness and meditation, and it was a really good one. If you get a chance, go back and watch the recording on that. That was really quite inspiring. And then June's masterclass was about intuition. That was a theme, and it was all about how to tap into your intuition and how to live and make decisions from an intuitive place. And actually, I've had really good feedback from people who were on that call and watched the replay, and they've started implementing that into their daily lives and have had really positive results. So really starting to make decisions from their higher self, from their intuitive mind, rather than the logical mind. So that's really good to hear. So just reading in the chat box, and we want to welcome everyone that's come this evening, so you can have a read of the comments and the introductions as I'm talking. And then in July, I didn't actually do a masterclass, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. And then obviously here we are today in August, and the theme for this month is identity. So this is a really juicy topic, and you're in for a real treat. If you've been thinking about your identity, who you are, what you're all about, then this is definitely going to be the session where you get some clarity. I don't say that you're going to get all the answers, because as we know, this is a journey and things unfold slowly as they're meant to. Sometimes slowly, sometimes fast. It just depends, you know, on everybody's speed. And sometimes you'll hear the same thing again and again, but it will just land differently, or it will just make sense and resonate. So it's really important to be very patient when you're on this journey. You've probably heard me say that before. Those of you that come to me for Reiki or coaching, it's so important to be patient with yourself, because we want quick results, don't we? We want to know that we're being fixed, so to speak. But actually, this is a process. It's like peeling away an onion. It's like takes time, and then eventually we get to that seed, and that seed is our identity, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what is identity? That's the very, very first question. What does identity mean to you? So have a think about it. I trust that you have your journal with you if you want to make some notes. This is about reflective exploration. This is not about note-taking. It's just about you really going into yourself and understanding, because you have all the answers. You know what all of this that we're going to discuss this evening, it's nothing new. It's all things that you already know deep down anyway. You've probably heard, you've probably seen, and you've experienced. So all we're doing is we're just exploring together. We're all learning from each other this evening. So what does identity mean to you? That's the question. Feel free to write on the chat box. What do you think about when you think of the word identity? And I decided to title today's class Identify Your Identity. And the reason for that is because I don't believe that identity is necessarily something we're born with. I think it's something that we develop, and it can always be changed. I think it evolves as we go along and as we experience new things in life. And I mentioned that I didn't do a masterclass in July, and there was a reason for that. And it was because I was going through my own identity crisis, if you like. I was going through a major transition. Most of you know that I run a dance and yoga studio, which is located in Slough. And I've been feeling recently that that studio, that school, is no longer aligned with my identity. That's how I've been feeling. And so how did I know I was feeling like that? Because internally I felt a pull and a push. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt like you're divided somewhat and you're being pulled in different directions? Well, that's how I felt. and it didn't necessarily feel aligned, because when we think about alignment, we think about a straight line, don't we? It's in the word. Alignment means straight line. Now, that's not to say that things are linear, but definitely there's a sense of congruency when one is in alignment. And I was feeling this, going side to side, being pulled and pushed, as I described. And so I knew that something had to change. Like my higher self, my intuition was telling me something's got to change. You can't carry on this way because it's not in alignment. It's not right. It's not your identity. And so I made the very brave decision of closing down my studio. And I say brave because a lot of people were relying on that place and on me. And it was a big responsibility. And have you ever had to make a decision in your life which affects others? Like your choice of job, for example, or your choice about your children's school. It affects others. It has a ripple effect. And this decision that I made, it also had a ripple effect. The students, the people that were coming to enjoy that facility that I had created, I was taking that away from them. So there was a great amount of guilt that came with that. So I was navigating through that process, but everything that I was doing was for one reason, and that was to be in alignment with my identity. So going back to the question, what is identity? And Pallavi says, identity is how we feel about ourselves and how we try and present that to the world. Beautiful. Yeah, I love that. How we feel about ourselves. And I said that identity, I don't think, is something that you're born with. Of course, we're all born with our set of genes and our personality traits and all those things, but it's also something that we develop, that we get nurtured over time. In my case, the example that I just gave you, a few years ago, if you'd have asked me, is running a studio in alignment with your identity, I would have said, of course it is. Yes, that's me, that's who I am. But because I had evolved, my identity evolved with it. What else do you think about identity? So Jag says, identity means knowing myself and the roles that I play on this journey. Yes, exactly. And the roles that you play have a key part to do with your identity. But not just the roles that you play, even your name. In fact, I think identity starts as soon as you are named. What do you think about that? Do you think that's true? Your identity. And isn't it interesting how our name is given to us by our parents, and therefore our part of our identity is given to us by our parents? So I remember when I was a child, and I wasn't born with the name Nikita. You've probably heard that before on one of my podcasts. I chose my name. And why did I do that? Because I didn't feel that my name was in alignment with my identity. I mean, some people change their gender because they don't feel that their gender is in alignment with their identity. So it's like we know deep down who we are. And it's all of the external conditioning and labels and, as Jag says, roles that we play that define us. But actually now we have an opportunity as adults to say, do we want those labels? Do we want those names? Do we want those descriptions? Or is there something else? Am I someone else? So that's the first question. What is identity? And the second question is, what do I want my identity to be? So the first bit is kind of like, who am I? And the second bit is, who do I want to be? So I mentioned this pulling and pushing, and some of you might relate to this feeling. Do you feel as though you are doing something that's not in alignment? Are you in a job that's not in alignment? Are you in a relationship? Do you have friends? Do you have hobbies even? You know, we might outgrow our hobbies, but we might just carry them on because we think, oh, well, we've been doing them for so long. It becomes a habit, doesn't it? You know, I have people that come to yoga week in, week out. They've been coming for like 10 years. I don't know if they ever stop and actually reflect on, you know, why am I doing this, or does this suit me anymore, or whether or not it's just they're on autopilot and they just come because it's a part of their lifestyle. It's familiar. We like what's familiar, don't we? We like what's comfortable. But this is an opportunity now for you to step out of that comfort zone and for you to do and be someone else or something else. Now, I'm not suggesting you change your gender or you change your name or you do anything drastic, but I'm suggesting that you explore who you are. Yeah. So we're going to do a little exercise now. So make sure that you've got your book there, and you'll need a fresh page for this. So we're going to take up the whole page. In the middle of your page, I'd like you to write your name and then put a circle around it. Okay. So in quite big letters, your name, your full name, ideally. Many of us have nicknames, don't we? Again, that's another part of our identity. Or maybe we didn't even choose our nicknames and other people chose them for us. So put your name in the middle and then put a circle around the outside. And then we're going to do a spider diagram. So from the circle, we're going to draw lines. And I'd like you to write everything that you identify with. All of the labels that you identify with. So examples are mother, father, whatever you like to be called, mum, dad, brother, sister, son, daughter, daughter-in-law, wife, husband. Then you might want to go into a job title. So write down all of the labels. Try and think of as many as you can. I know there's going to be quite a lot. This is a really valuable exercise to do, and I do this a lot when we do Dharma coaching, because identity and Dharma are very closely linked. So take a few minutes to just write down all of the labels that you associate yourself with. So in my case, it would be Reiki healer, life coach, you know, you could even go as far as like property owner, whatever you do, your hobbies, footballer, anything that you are passionate about, any labels that you've ever identified with. That's why I said you need a very big piece of paper for this. And it's amazing, isn't it? I find it fascinating how we have so many words, because they're just words, aren't they, really? There's so many that we all identify with on a regular basis. You could put your gender, you can put your any preferences that you have, gym enthusiast, walker, or anything that you enjoy doing, nature lover. That's why there's so many groups, aren't there? Like Facebook groups for every single hobby, everything that we do, there's a group for. It's amazing. So does anyone want to share on the chat box any of your labels? Wow, Dell's showing his piece of paper. That's a lot of labels. That's amazing.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yes. And was that quite easy for you to do, or did you struggle?
Just started with the easy ones first.
Yeah, I love it. Runner, fisherman. Yeah, I can see them all. Cable guy, like that one. Does anyone else want to share their spider diagram? All of these words, descriptions, titles, labels, they all make up our identity. Our family, our friends, relationships, hobbies, the skills that we're good at, like baker, you might say. One of my identities is baker or cook. Barman, for example, are you the person that makes the drinks when people come round? Anyone else want to share or write on the chat box? What are you known for? So this is the first part, which is identifying your identity. So really understanding who you are, what defines you. Jags put mother, daughter, sister, wife, thinker, I like that one. Accounts assistant, Reiki healer, wanderer, I like that one. See? And I bet you if you put into Facebook a group of wanderers, there will be lots of people, because people like to connect with like-minded people, right? Like what we're doing tonight. We like to fit in. We like to, be with people that share similar labels to us. Does anyone else want to share? And these labels change, as we said, they change as you go through life. They get added to. They sometimes get, things taken away from them as well. So this page is going to change. If you do this again in a few years' time, it would be very different. Maybe Dell would be like, no, I don't want to be the cable guy anymore. Victoria says, it's amazing how many identities we have to other people when we really think about it. Partner, sister, auntie, friend, godmother, dog, mum. Interesting to think about how other people see us in those different lights. Yes. Yeah. Dell says the party guy has retired now. So had he done this a few years ago, that spider diagram would have had party guy on it, but it doesn't now. So it's always changing. So is our identity always changing then, in that case, if the labels are changing? Or is there a part that stays the same? So the next thing that we do in the Dharma coaching, when I do this exercise with groups and even one-to-one, is I get them to then, and I'm not going to ask you to do this because it might be a little bit too much, but I get them to cross out all of those words on the page. Why do you think I get them to cross out those words? What was the point in writing them if you were just going to cross them out? What do you think? Yeah, Dell says you shed the layers. Yeah, exactly. So it's about going back to you. Because as Victoria says, most of those things are for other people. Majority of them. So when you cross them out, you're left with yourself in the middle, your name with the circle around it. So who is that person? When you take away the roles of auntie, uncle, godmother, dog mum, you know, thinker, wonderer, all those things that you've identified with all your life, what happens when you take them away? Mandy says bus driver, healthcare assistant, domestic assistant, driving instructor, yes. If you've had multiple job roles, then you will have multiple labels and identities. And each identity carries a frequency. So what happens when we take away all of those? What are we left with? How does that feel? Why do you think people get like, whoa, when they do this in person and I get them to physically cross out all of those words? Why do you think they're like, because it's scary, isn't it? It's scary to think, well, hold on a minute. Who am I then? If I'm not those things, then what am I left with? And you may even say that there's an emptiness. Does anyone feel like there's an emptiness in crossing out all of those words on the page? What are you left with? And so really it's not our identity that's defining us, but it's our attachment to our identity. It's our attachment to being a parent, a son, a daughter, a brother, a sister, all of those things. And the Buddha said attachment is the root cause of all suffering. The root cause of all suffering. Why do you think the Buddha said that? Surely the more words you have on your page, the more fulfilled your life is. Shouldn't it be that way? Shouldn't it be more satisfactory to have that many titles and labels and that many people needing you? Shouldn't that be a good thing? So why is the attachment to those things the root of all suffering? Yes, Dell has hit the nail on the head. He says that because you feel the loss when the attachments come and go. Exactly, because the attachment, the label, is temporary. Those words that you've written on your page are all temporary. They can all be taken away. And it's our attachment with them that causes the loss, and that loss causes the suffering. So what do we do? What's the solution? Not have so many labels? It might not be possible. You can't control. If your brother has a daughter, you're going to become an uncle. You can't change that. But what can you change? All the labels are temporary. You can't change them. But what can you change? Your attachment to them. That's what can be changed. So detaching, which is the opposite of attaching, is not neglecting. Okay, so let's be very clear about this. I'm not saying neglect your duties, be a bad auntie, you know, neglect your partner or your children or your job. No, detachment does not mean neglecting. Detachment is exactly what Dell says. I think Dell is going to get like A star for tonight's class because he's just really understanding the essence. He said it's how you feel about them. Yes. Attachment is simply how you feel about those words on your page. Are you defined by those words? Is your happiness dependent on those words? Be honest. Is your happiness dependent on those words? Probably, right? For most of us. Because that's what we assume life to be about, yes. Yeah. There's no shame in this. I will admit my happiness is dependent on my house, on my car, on my things, materialistic possessions, of course, of course. But how do we then separate our identity from them? So we're not sourcing our validation from those things. Because when we source our validation externally, it leaves us in a very vulnerable place because anything can change, as we know. And that's why actually when people get made redundant, for example, they get really, really upset. Not because they really necessarily love their job, or, you know, I've got some clients that come to me and they don't even really see much like opportunity in their job. They actually don't even really enjoy being there anymore. But as soon as they get made redundant, they're really distraught. And yeah, there's an element of the unknown, the uncertainty, because obviously for that period of time, you know, they're going to have to manage the bills and everything like that. But more than the all of that, it's the rejection. It's the rejection because they base their identity on that title, that job title, and that job title got taken away from them. And actually, in a few months' time, they usually get a job and it's much better and everything's fine. Have you ever heard anybody say, oh, I got made redundant and that's it, I never got another job after that, oh, my life was just really bad? No, right? You've never heard that. Nobody ever says that. They always say, guess what? I got made redundant. I felt really bad. And then a few months later, I got a new job and it was the best thing ever. And it was so much better and it's so much more aligned. That's always what people say, because everything is always happening for you. It's always happening for you, even though you feel at times that, oh my God, the universe hates me. Do you ever feel that way? Do you feel like, oh, I think the universe has got it in for me? I just, honestly, everything's just falling apart. I'm laughing because we all feel that way. We all do. But everything's happening for our growth. Everything's going around in a cyclic way, just like nature. It's all changing all the time, but it's all for the better. But we've got to go with it. When we remain stuck in one place and we don't move with the tide, that's when the universe intervenes and it's like, okay, she's not going to leave her job, I might as well take it away from her then. Okay, she's like staying in the same job and really complaining a lot, so I'm just going to take it away and make her redundant. Does anyone have any comments or reflections about this? I'm just giving an example of a job, but it can be anything. It can be anything. So sometimes the universe corners us, so to speak, puts us in a situation where we have no choice because we were not taking action. We were procrastinating. We were going against our identity. We were going out of alignment. And so what the universe is doing is gently nudging us, sometimes gently, sometimes a bit harder, nudging us back into alignment, back into the path. It's like you're driving a car and you're going off the road. You're like going, you know, away, your tires going out of the lane. And then, you know, those self-driving cars, they just bring you back onto track, even without you doing anything. You know, we've got a self-driving car and it's amazing. You could take your hands off the wheel and it drives itself. I was a bit scared the first time I sat in it, but actually it's fun and it keeps you on track. And that's what the universe does. It's like, no, 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 your identity's not that way. It's this way. Come on. We know deep down what our identity is. We know who we are behind those words. We're just not doing it or being it. Why? Why do you think we're not being who we're meant to be? What's the number one thing holding us back? Begins with an F. What's the number one thing holding us back from being true to ourselves? Fear. Fear, fear, fear. It's just fear. Fear of what? Fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, fear of change, fear of anything. Like your lower self, your ego mind, will just make up things to be afraid of. It will just make things up. Even if everything was laid out for you and you were given this grand plan, your lower self would still look for something to be fearful about, because that's its nature. That's the nature of the mind. It's to keep you alive, ultimately. It's to keep you in survival mode. And so going, you know, out of alignment, your lower self is like, whoa, whoa, no, 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 let's not do this. Let's stay comfortable. Let's stay safe. But staying safe is living a compromised version of who you are. So the first question we asked ourselves is, who am I? Which is this spider diagram. And then the second bit that I'd like to go on to now, the next exercise, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? Beyond these labels. I'm not just talking about these labels now. Who do I want to be? What do I want to be known for? You know, have you ever heard people say, what would you like people to say at your funeral? I know that's quite a morbid thing to think about, but it's true. Like, what do I want to be known for? You know, like I knew I didn't want to be the name that I was given at birth. I knew that that's not what I wanted to be known for. That's not how I wanted to feel about myself. I also knew that I didn't want to be a studio owner, that I had more potential than that. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. It was a great achievement, but it was no longer aligned. And in that case, I was brave because I took matters into my own hands. I didn't wait for my steering wheel to go that way and then the universe to bring me back. That would have been harder, maybe. I you know, saw that it wasn't working and I made a change. So what in your life do you know is not working? And where do you need to make that change? Now, this is deeply personal, so I don't expect you to share this on the chat box, but I'd like you to reflect on this. Who do I want to be? What do I want my identity to be? So the first stage we talked about, identify your identity. Now this bit is, how do we upgrade our identity? Do you know this summer what I've been doing? Like, I've been tidying my wardrobes. I've been going through my wardrobes. I'm like, is this my identity, this item of clothing, or is this? And I'm like literally chucking things away, giving to charity, like anything that's not in line with my identity. And some of them are very nice clothes. It's not that there's anything wrong with them. They just don't suit my identity. I'm changing. I'm upgrading. So what you wear, the car you drive, the house you live in, you know, that's where this word comes from. Oh, you've had an upgrade. You go to a hotel room, they're like, would you like an upgrade? You go on an aeroplane, would you like to pay extra for an upgrade? They're asking you if you want to align with a new sense of identity. Obviously, they don't know that they're asking you that, but that's the thought behind it. It's like, who are you? Who do you want to be? If the fear wasn't there, if the doubt wasn't there, the doubt will say, oh, me. Oh, no, not me. I can't afford that. Oh, no, it's too good for me. I'll just, you know, I'll have the Cadburys, not the Thorntons. But what do you really want? When I was growing up, we always used to give the nice chocolates away to guests or to other people for their birthdays, and we would have to just eat the cheaper ones. And I was thinking to myself, why do we not get to have the nice chocolates? And there was this, you know, unspoken belief that, oh no, we're not good enough. The guests are better than us, or the people that we're going to gift it to, they deserve it. We can just eat, you know, these cheaper ones. And that's how I grew up, thinking, well, I'm not good enough, until I became an adult and I questioned it. And I'm like, actually, no, I'm going to eat my hotel chocolat. Thank you very much. And I'm going to buy it for myself. I'm not going to wait for it to be gifted to me. Yeah. So this is going into self-love now. So Dell says, that's what's the word that you say when your granddaughter was born? Fear of fear. Upgrade. Okay. Oh, upgrade. Yeah. So what area or areas of your life would you like to upgrade? I gave my example of my wardrobe. I don't mean the physical wardrobe, I meant the contents. Like, what would you like to upgrade in your life? What do you know no longer serves you? You just know. You just feel it. You know, that pulling, that pushing that I was describing, that feeling. It's like a restlessness. And you know, in my experience, if you don't address it, then it actually starts to filter into all other areas of your life. So if that misalignment is causing restlessness, for example, then it's not just in that situation. Let's say you're not happy with your job. It's not like you'll just be restless at work. It will then filter through into your everyday life. You could be out having a lovely dinner in a nice restaurant and you might feel restless. You might choose something to complain about. Oh, the light here, I don't like it. Oh, the noise, why is that table making so much sound? Why is the waiter so slow? None of those things are actually real. It's only because you've got restlessness within you based on whatever it is that's actually coming through in different situations. Because when you're at peace within, it doesn't matter where you are. You could be anywhere, anything, any circumstances. You could be on a train to London, for example, and there's nowhere to sit. And you're just standing and you're fine. You're like, oh, well, doesn't matter. But if you're unhappy or restless or angry or frustrated or anything's going on beneath the surface, that will start to come out in any situations. So people that are angry, they're not angry at whatever it is they're being angry about. They're angry about something else. So they'll just choose something in that moment. It's like an excuse to pretend to be angry about that. But actually, they don't know themselves that it's anger about something else. So once we get to the root cause, that's when we're able to work on it. So the question will be like, what are you really angry about? What's really going on? And that takes courage. It takes courage to answer that question, because people don't want to face their demons. They don't want to face this is called shadow work, our shadows, our negative, vices, if you like. It's really hard, because you've been on a journey yourselves and you know how hard it is. It's so much easier to say, oh, it's his fault, it's her fault, isn't it? Oh, it's the government's fault. Isn't it easier to do that? To point the finger, to blame other people, or to be a victim. Oh, typical, had to be me, didn't it? Yeah, trust it not to work out for me. Oh yeah, the one day I choose to go to London, there's nowhere to sit. Typical, isn't it? Oh, I was about to go for a walk and it started raining. See? Do you ever do that? Do you ever go into victim mode? Do you ever blame other people for how you feel? Or blame other circumstances? Do you go into persecutor mode? Be honest. I'm laughing because we all do it. I do it. We all do it. But it's about recognizing when you're doing it, being aware. Awareness is the first step. It's the most important step. Because if you're not aware, you don't know. You're just oblivious. You're oblivious if you don't know. And if you don't live with people that are doing this work, who are on the journey, then it's very difficult. It can be very challenging to, keep you on track and to notice, when you're going off or when you're stepping into these modes. So Victoria says she did used to do this all the time, but not anymore. Oh, was that Victoria or Del? Del says that. Sorry. Yes, not now. Since being on the journey, becoming much more aware, noticing, hold on, I'm stepping into victim, I'm stepping into persecutor. That's not who I want to be. That's not my identity. So who do you want your identity to be? What do you want it to be? So we looked at those temporary labels, those roles. But now what is the permanent thread that brings all of those together? That's you, your soul. It's your soul. Victoria says it's a lot easier to be in victim mode. It is, isn't it? It's so much easier. But it's not a nice space to be in the long term. Yeah, it's not empowering. It's not empowering. And you're not moving forward. You just remain stuck in that space. So we think about our soul. We all know by now we are a soul in a human body. That's, I think, common knowledge now. I hope everybody knows that. So what is your soul? And it goes back to that profound question, who am I? Who do I want to be? Am I honoring my soul right now, doing the things that I'm doing, being the way that I'm being? Because you have a choice. So many people don't know this. They don't know that they have a choice. You have chosen everything in your life, and you are choosing everything that is going to come. So going back to victim mode, if you carry on like that, you continue to attract that, you continue to manifest that, because we manifest what we are. Yeah, talking about manifestation now. We manifest from our current identity. So if we think we are only worthy of this, that's all we'll manifest. That's why some people stay at the same pay bracket for so long. So long. One of my husband's colleagues came round and they were talking, and she was telling him that she hasn't asked for a pay rise for 3 years. And he said, why didn't you ask for a pay rise? And she said, I don't know, I just assumed that if they were going to give it, they would offer. And he's every year asked for one. And it was fascinating to me. It was like, how come you didn't ask? Like, that's a normal thing to do, right? In your annual appraisal. And she was like, I just thought that they'd offer it. Well, no. So somewhere her identity was capped at that much, that she thought that was all she could charge for herself. You know, same with self-employed people. They charge the same rate for years. You know, you got the same plumber who charged you the same amount like 20 years ago. They just cap themselves there because they are operating from their current identity. They haven't upgraded their identity and their self-worth. It's at the same point. I mean, there's nothing, that's just an example about money. There's nothing to say that that's wrong. It's just whether or not it aligns. So how would you like your identity to be? Does anybody feel like sharing? What would you like to change? Dell says wise. Yeah, I love that. I like that because it's not tangible. And actually, it's not temporary either, because when you are wise, you are wise, and it's not going to change. It can't be taken away from you. Whereas all the other things on your previous spider diagram, they can all be taken away. They can all change. But wisdom, knowledge as well, can never be taken away from you. That's why the most amount of investment that you ever do should be in your mind. Invest in your mind. Even if you invest in a gym, you go to the gym, you maybe work out, you get the best body, six-pack, it can change. Following year, you might put on weight and then it's gone. But when you invest in your brain, like you actually do courses, you read books, you know, you upgrade your knowledge, that can never, ever, ever be taken away. Your mind is something that will always be with you. That's why that's the best thing to invest in. I'm constantly going on courses. All the time I'm doing courses because I love learning and I love just growing. Yeah, you can get old doing it. Exactly. Anyone else want to share? What is it that you would like to change? If there was no fear, if fear was not in the way at all. What would you like to do to align with your purpose? You often hear me talking about purpose. What would you need to change? Victoria says she would like to be confident, intuitive, and decisive. I love that. And I like the way she was so decisive in writing that. In fact, reading that, I think, wow, that person who wrote that must be confident, intuitive, and decisive. So they're no longer just words, but you become them. You become them. Anyone else want to share? Who would they like to be? And then we'll start to wrap up. It always amazes me how quickly these sessions go. Like I start and then I look at the time and it's time to finish. I could just carry on talking. There's so much to explore, so much to learn and grow and to ponder on. So just to summarize everything that we've discussed today, we talked about identifying your identity. We talked about upgrading your identity. There was one more stage, but we didn't get time to cover, and that's defining your identity. So it's like the first bit was figuring out, okay, who am I? The second bit is who do I want to be? The third bit is how do I stay that way? This is the hardest bit, isn't it? When you want to do anything, if you want to lose weight, if you want to, you know, do anything you try to do in life, it's how do you hold that? How do you keep it there? It's that consistency. So that's the last bit that I hope that you will ponder on in your own time. How can I keep this identity and not go back into my old one? Because that's what's going to try to happen. It's going to try to pull you back. You know, when I was making the decision about closing down the studio, my old identity kept talking to me and saying, oh, but maybe you could make it work, but maybe you could do this and that, but maybe. And it's like trying to almost trick you. But that's where you've got to be, as Victoria says, confident and decisive and intuitive, and say, actually, no, this is my new identity. This is who I am now. So, yeah, I hope you benefited from this. Just finally, to finish, what are your biggest takeaways? What would you like to, what's the biggest thing that you have learned or you would like to think about a bit more? Obviously, we've only just barely touched the surface. This is a very deep subject, but I just wanted you to think more about your current self versus your true self. And that's exactly the topic of next month's masterclass. So next month is going to be all about how to step into the new version of you. So many of you feel like you're on this cusp, and that's why you're on this journey. And I often say we're on a journey from karma to dharma. So next month is going to be going into detail into what exactly is karma and what is dharma. So it's going to be very interesting. Please look out for that and make sure that you can attend. If not, then the replays will always be available. So Del says that tonight was just the right thing for where he is on his journey. That's amazing. I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you to all of you for contributing and for your ideas and your input. It means a lot. And like I say, we always learn from each other. So that's really, really important. So just put your final takeaways onto the group chat. And then we'll wrap up the recording. I am going to stay and just talk about the upcoming opportunities that I'm doing, but I'm aware that some of you need to go, and that's fine. The Dharma diploma, as you know, is coming up in September, and some of you on this call might be interested in finding out more. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. And there's also a retreat that's coming up as well next year. So I just want to give you some more information about that. But if you do need to hop off, completely understand. I will not be offended at all. Thank you very much for joining. I really hope that you got what you needed from it. And carry on reflecting. All this work, don't just, you know, leave it in your notebook. Always make sure that you go back, revisit it, reflect on it.